Hi everyone, today's January 18th, 2020, and this is the Duel Assessment, your podcast for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. My name is Green Ranger, and this week there are a ton of new cards inserted into Duel Links. We have the Carly event, so it's the first appearance of regular Carly Carmine, and we have a new archetype here, the Fortune Fairies, as well as some spellbook support. So she is a roaming duelist. She has a lot of new cards. In the shop, we have Selection Box Volume 3, highly anticipated, and a lot of new cards, which I'll talk about opportunity cost and the reasons why you would buy this box. We also have a new structured deck EX called Dragunity Overdrive. This is for the Dragunity archetype that was very explosive at some point, been put away, so it's got some new tools. We'll look at those 4 new cards. Also in the PvE scene, Duel Tournament is back. We get to play with Akiza, and there are 2 new cards from there that are interesting. Dimmaduel will have his casual deck of the week later, and that's it. So let's talk about my week in the Duel World. I'm currently Legend 3. I got there last night with Element Saber invoked. I was playing that triple threat deck, and I wasn't really getting anywhere. Fortunately, these didn't get me anywhere. So I figured might as well stick with the best deck I have. That's Element Saber invoked right now. And since with the 3rd anniversary we're getting new dream tickets, I figured I finally use my old SR dream ticket. I think I used my old UR for a Silent Magician. So I used my 3rd dream ticket to get something boring, a 3rd Cosmic Cyclone. This is just to help out, to give my deck an edge that, my deck is missing cards because I don't spend much money on the game. So, having a 3rd Cosmic Cyclone really helps the Sorcery Conduit, maximizes the chance of drawing it. It helps the fact that I only have 2 Alistairs, so having that 3rd is good for your banish removal for your back row, as well as that consistency. My deck noticeably has some synchro ability, so I have a Clock Resonator, which is superior to Scrap Goblin, in my opinion. It allows some of my synchro plays, so I do have this hybrid deck, and that's just because I only have 1 Purgatrio. My Purgatrio is done, and that's it. So I'm Legend 3, and I'll hope to get some more games in because I am getting surgery. This podcast will be released on Saturday, but thanks to the magic of podcast editing, I'm doing this ahead of time. And so I'm having surgery the day before. I probably wouldn't be able to talk. Sinus surgery, just to let people know. So, yeah, I'm recording the podcast ahead of time. These words are being spoken about 13, 14 hours before my surgery, so we'll see what happens. So first, let's talk about this week in esports. And just because of the sequence of things, I'm going to talk about some different tournaments. Duel Links Meta Weekly 107 will be skipped. In lieu of that, we're going to talk about the point battles. And these are pretty much the same. You have the same competitors and the same system. So some familiar names, and the meta is pretty much the same. So these are Duel Links Meta Point Battles number 25. There are 3 tournaments. Let's go. First place, Drizzy Drake, Sealed Tombs, Dark Magician. This deck comes together really well. It's a really nice deck. 2 Magician of Dark Illusion, 3 Magician's Rod, 3 Dark Magician, 3 Dark Magic Circle, 1 Illusion Magic, 1 Eye of Timaeus, 2 Fiendish Chain, 3 Magician Navigation, 2 Treacherous Trap Hole. Extra deck, we have Dark Cavalry, 3 Dark Paladins, and 2 Amulet Dragons. There's a lot of effect negation going on. Fiendish Chain is notoriously good for that, and also keeping the monster to get hit. Magician's Navigation, 3 of those to negate back row effects. After you summon 2 Dark Magicians, of course. Eye of Timaeus allows those strong fusion plays. Dark Cavalry is pretty powerful card. I mean, once it's on the board, they pretty much lose. I feel like it's a huge beater, and has that protection. So great card. I mean, I don't think I've beaten Dark Cavalry much. Second place, we have Emma Valentine, the 6 Sams expert, with Tie That Binds 6 Sams. And if you look at this deck, after all that 6 Sams I've been through, this is pretty much the same deck. 1 Grandmaster, 3 Kizin, 1 Kizaru, 3 Fuma, 2 Legendary Secrets, 1 Cosmic Cyclone, 3 6 Samurai United, 2 Shen's Dojo, 3 Dual Wield, 1 Return of the 6 Samurai. Synchro plays, Brionic, Armadides, 2 Shen, 1 HCS Psyhemoth, and then the Contact Fusion of Rihan. So, a very generic deck. It runs 3 Dual Wields. That's kind of what the deck looked like before when it first came out. And then people started countering Dual Wield, and then it went away. There is Cosmic Cyclone here. That's a little... Back then, you just relied on Shen being around to do stuff, and you didn't need Cosmic Cyclone, but there's 1 copy here. And the Grandmaster. Grandmaster allows you to make those level 6 plays. HCS Psyhemoth for whenever you need that banish. And Brionic pretty much closes out games. Very good card. I mentioned later, Kagemusha and Kizin get together for a level 6 synchro play, but this is a more generic play that can fit into this deck without hurting it, the consistency. Third place, Dinsho, Spell Specialist, Grass Shiranui. This deck, you're starting to see this deck more than the regular Shiranui, I think. And Burgeoning Whirlflame, whoever invented that, it's going to be a fixture in this deck because it's pretty good in this deck. A lot of effect negation in this with Divine Wraths and Ultimate Providence. Tournament 2, Sakura, first place, Sealed Tombs, Masked Envision Hero. We'll talk about Stratus later, but Stratus makes the deck 3 copies of this card and 3 copies of Solid Soldier. They removed the Destiny heroes that were the engine for mass change. So you got 6 copies of those cards, replacing some of those regular 1600 attackers. Vion, you have 1 copy of Vision Hero Vion. Of course, this card is limited to 1, and that helps the polymerization play. Got some Vision Heroes here, and Masked Heroes. The extra deck, you got 2 Masked Hero Anki, 1 Masked Hero Diane, 1 Masked Hero Blast, 1 Vision Hero Adoration, and 1 Vision Hero Trinity. So, yeah. Some really good traps too. 3 Fiendish Chain, of course, 2 Paleozoic, 2 Treacherous Trap Hole. Heroes are a deck now. Second place, Buns, Spell Specialist, Grass Shiranui. This deck's starting to have some core cards. Burgeoning Whirlflame, as I just mentioned, is one of them. Of course, with a 30-card deck, you make some choices. This one is Offerings to the Doomed, Mistaken Arrest, 2 Solemn Scolding. And third place, Mythyard, Sealed Tombs, Shiranui. This is the regular 20-card version, so no grass. More clean deck. 3 Shiranui Solitaire, 3 Squire, 1 Spirit Master is pretty much the MVP of the deck in my opinion. 1 Spectral Sword Shade, 2 Spectral Sword, 2 Cosmic, 2 Gold Sarcophagus, 1 Econ, 2 Fiendish Chain, 2 Paleozoics, 1 Treacherous Trap Hole. Now, Tournament 3, Chopamon, Transcendent Crystals, Crystons. This one is, Crystons are always 30-card decks. This one's interesting. It runs a trap card, counter trap called Heroes Rule 2. Negate the activation of a spell, trap, or effect monster. That's effect negates that targets a card in the graveyard, destroy it. Sometimes you're better off running Divine Wrath or Ultimate Providence because those are against universal effects, but this does not cost a card. So if you don't have a card, you can't activate those counter traps. This one is free, so it's more situational, but it's free. Pretty good meta call. Francisco, Transcendent Crystals, Crystron takes second, so 2 Crystron decks, first and second. This one's more generic in that the back row is, general, Divine Wrath, Ultimate Providence. Third place, Maxino, Compensation, Dark Lords. Nothing to talk about. This is just the regular Dark Lord deck. Back row is pretty much the same too. It's just some of the monsters are a little different sometimes. Alright, Duel Links meta is discussed. Let's talk about the other tournament, Battle Phase 32. Ozzy, first place, Compensation, Dark Lords. Like I mentioned, there's nothing to talk about with Dark Lords. 2 Cosmic Cyclone instead of 3. That's the only real change. Another Amdusk instead of a Cosmic Cyclone, I guess. Just dominant deck. grindy, effect negating, full of beaters. That's all you need to win Duel Links forever. Second place, Night Core, Sealed Tombs, Ritual Beast. Nothing fancy here. The Ritual Beasts are there's no plasma, there's no lava golem, there's no special flavor for the monsters, but it does run Necro Valley, and the skill is Sealed Tombs, so they're just locking out the graveyard. You've got the quick plays, Ritual Beast Return, Ritual Beast Bond, 2 Fiendish Chain, 2 Treacherous Trap Hole. Third place, Negdu Zap, Spell Specialist Grass, Shiranui. Burgeoning Whirlflame is in here. It's a staple now. And Mistaken Arrest, 3 Fiendish Chain, 1 Double Magic Armbind, 1 Needlebug Nest. You could really do whatever you want with 30 card Spell Specialist, grass decks, and Shiranui get to play around with their back row choices. And third place, CRP Bag, Sealed Tombs, Ritual Beast, another Ritual Beast here. This guy's not free to play. This guy is probably not. This guy's not a whale. He doesn't have any Fiendish Chains in the deck. I think that's funny. That's how you tell who's a whale or not. They have Fiendish Chain. All right. So let's talk about Duel Links meta tier list update. And Dark Lords and Blackwings are in tier 1. Blackwings have moved up. They seem to be doing better than ever. Second place, we have Shiranui, Element Sabers, and Dark Magician. Dark Magician previously, I think they were high potential, and they moved up straight to tier 2. That deck that we saw earlier that negates all those effects and combines the power of Dark Magician shows why it could be really good. Fiendish Chain is pretty good for it. Tier 3, we have Cyber Dragons and Ritual Beasts. Cyber Dragons are definitely fine as a ladder deck. They just dominate very well, but in these tournament settings, maybe not so much. High potential, we have Dragunity, and Thunder Dragons have been removed from the tier list. A lot of cards were added to Duel Links this week, and the first set that we're going to talk about is from the Roaming Duelist, and that is Carmine. Carmine, it's a little confusing. She's been in the game for quite a bit of time, since the beginning of 5Ds, I think, or she was one of the first characters we got for 5Ds. But that was the Dark Signer version that played Fortune Ladies. This is the original uncorrupted form of Carmine, the reporter. And this is pretty much the main character that is on the show. You rarely see the Dark Signer version except for that storyline. But she plays different cards. And a really cool thing they did this time was add a fortune telling feature. And that is basically a new way for us to get our rewards. So, any reward system is cool, obviously. But having it reskinned in this way of being fortune telling is pretty awesome. And interestingly for me, I got the green one every time. 3 days in a row, I've gotten the green fairy, which means you're gonna have a so-so day, I think. But I've gotten skill chips twice and 30 gems once. So those are some good rewards. As long as they don't give me gold, I think I'm good. Let's talk about her cards. These are all new cards. Well, except for Medium the Ice Barrier, Quick Booster, and the common cards. But some new Fortune Fairy cards, which have some crossover with Fortune Ladies. They're the uncorrupted version of the Fortune Ladies. And some spellbook support, too. Let's get to these cards. UR card, which I still have 0 of. Fortune Fairy Hikari, level 1, light spellcaster 0/0. When you draw this card, reveal it, then special summon it from the hand. If this is special summon from the hand, you can target one monster you control, send it to the graveyard. If you do, special summon one level 1 spellcaster monster from your deck. You can only use each effect of Fortune Fairy Hikari once per turn. So Fortune Fairy Hikari is Fortune Lady Light before she got corrupted. And it's crazy. It's not crazy. It's funny that this card has great synergy with Fortune Lady Light. You draw this card, you send Fortune Lady Light to the graveyard, and then you could special summon Fortune Lady Past with Hikari, and then a bigger monster with Light. You could get Fortune Lady Water out, which will let you draw 2 cards. So Fortune Lady decks already have turbo drawing. They have Fortune Lady Water, They have Future Fortune, so each one draws 2 cards. And then with the tutoring, with the Fortune Lady Calling, it's not that hard to do. Um, it's just that these Fortune Fairy cards have to, their effects only activate when you draw them. So there's always a bit of RNG with this set, but I have a feeling they could just add all the draw cards, and then they could draw pretty well. So that's an easy way to get through your deck to get into your synchro plays. A lot of deck thinning with the card advantage you get. And of course, this is a Fortune Fairy. It's not exactly a Fortune Lady, so there's probably tricks you can't do with Fortune Lady calling. It doesn't work. The two different groups aren't completely compatible. So this just has synergy with Fortune Lady Light, so it's not go crazy, but those 2 cards could work together with Fortune Ladies. Next card is called Miracle Stone. It is continuous spell. All spellcasters you control gain 500 attack and defense for each Fortune Fairy monster you control of a different name. Once per turn, when an attack is declared involving your Fortune Fairy monster, you can draw a card. You can only control one of these cards at once. So, biggest benefit is you have 3 different Fortune Fairies on the board. They have 1,500. We only have 2 Fortune Fairies right now, so it seems like Carly's going to be a legendary duelist at some point, and we're going to get more cards. Because this doesn't work with just 2 Fortune Fairies. So then they all get buffed to 1,500, and that's great because these girls all have 0 defense. So having 1,500 is better than 0, I guess. And this is just for Fortune Fairies right now. It helps all spellcasters, but it's clunky when you have like 1 spellcaster and then like 2 Fortune Fairies, or 1, so it's a little weird. Until this archetype becomes a thing, we could consider looking at this card then. Right now, this will see no play. Here is an SR spell called Dwimmered Path. Normal spell. Target 1 spellcaster effect monster in your graveyard. Add it to your hand. You can only activate 1 Dwimmered Path per turn. A little underwhelming. A lot of powerful card effects. Get stuff from the deck directly. You could fuse from the deck, for Pete's sake. And Dwimmered Path, you just recycle an effect spellcaster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. That's it. This effect isn't great, but there are certain cards that this would help. One being Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. That's just the linchpin of spellbooks. And you would play Dwimmered Path to recycle your blue boy. Like, the advantage that you get from that recycle has to outweigh this being a mediocre card for recovery. So that's all it is. And it's going to be limited to cards that really need that spellcaster, like spellbooks. The next card is Fortune Fairy Chi. We moved into the R's. Level 6 Earth Spellcaster 0/0. When you draw this card, reveal it. Special summon from the hand. If this is special summon from the hand, you can activate this effect. Each player draws 1 card. So, this goes into the Fortune Fairy thing of being special summoned. You get to draw more cards with this. 1 card doesn't have that burn ability that Fortune Lady Earth does when that card never really saw any play. The potential for this is it's a level 6. A level 6 free special summon. You can get into level 7 Fortune Lady every play right there, or any. It gets a lot of stars on the board. That's what I'm trying to say for a free special summon, and it has to be drawn. And then so the Fortune Fairies have to draw a lot. That's the only way you would run this card. The problem, of course, is it's a level 6 with 0/0, and Fortune Fairies never ran Fortune Lady Earth because you could break a ton with her, and yeah. But if you have these cards in the deck, you could kind of free up Carly from using Time Passage. I kind of said this with Fortune Lady Dark being introduced, being 5 stars. Maybe you can ease her from using Time Passage. Time Passage is a great skill, don't get me wrong, but there is that other skill, the new skill that lets you play that field where every monster gets banished when they're normal summoned. That's pretty good too. So it allows you to open up play for a new dual skill. It in itself, when you're running Time passage probably won't cut it though. Here are some spellbook cards. Spellbook Star Hall, continuous spell. Each time a spellbook card is activated, spellbook spell is activated. Place a spell counter on this card. All spellcasters you control gain 100 attack for each counter. When this card with spell counters is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, add a spellcaster monster from your deck to your hand, whose level is less than or equal to the number of counters that were on this card. So let's combine spellbooks and counters. Spellbooks kind of activate like maybe three spells a turn sometimes, so that they could buff Spellbook of Fate. They kind of do that 3 and then get Fate and set Fate. That's their play typically. So that would be 300 attack right there. The thing is, spellbooks don't really run a ton of monsters except for Silent Magician, so this would just be helping Silent Magician, right? And that card's pretty good on its own. This doesn't seem like it's enough, but if you're running a deck with counters like Endymions or the Magical Exemplar, what's the other one? Magical something, I think, has counters. Any situation you're running counters and put them on, you could put them on this one, but pure spellbooks itself, this card just doesn't seem good enough for regular spellbooks to make them any better. And here's a monster, Hermit of Prophecy, level 3 Earth Spellcaster, 1200, 700. Each time a spellbook card is activated, spellbook spell is activated, increase this card's level by 2 and attack by 300. So, like I said, they activate like 3 spells a turn. That's going to make this a 2100 attacker with level 9. This card has some appeal if you're trying to make spellcasters a synchro deck. So, this guy's level is going to change constantly and shift, and that will allow some flexibility in what you're playing. The problem is this guy's buffs get wiped away with Paleozoic. So, flip this guy face down, and then he's done. This card reminds me a lot of a Hearthstone card called Questing Adventure or Mana Addict. They were some of my favorite cards with Miracle Rogues, but I digress. The same thing, like those cards could just lose their buffs, and then this is just some weak monster on the board. If they ever combine synchros with spellbooks, this guy could be a sneaky factor. Move on to some other new cards, and some came through Selection Box Volume 3. And every time a selection box comes out, they let you buy the new ones too. So Volume 1 and 2 are also out if you want to buy some of the old cards, but it's not recommended. If you're going to focus on a selection box, you should get the ones right now. Only reason to go through an old one is if you have extra money lying around you want to burn, but any like old archetype that you want to finish building, that's another possibility. There's some new URs and SRs here, 4 new URs and 8 more SRs. So we'll go through 12 cards here. I want to stress that the selection boxes are geared for whales. We're going to get these cards down the line through the year, and not exactly only for whales, but it's paying for opportunity cost. It's paying for the chance to play these cards to dominate for it could be the rest of the year, the majority of this year, and it's paying for that opportunity cost. You're going to lose out if you don't have these cards right now. That's what the selection box is for. You could just spend some money, spend some gems, and gamble if that's fun for you. I find that a fun thing actually, just buying a few, but in my state with 3,000 gems, I don't think I could afford that. It will just cripple me for the next box. So I don't know if I'll buy it yet, but I might wait for the next box news to come out and see what's there before I make a decision on what to buy here. But I personally have not bought this box yet, but there are some pretty good cards in here. Let's go through the cards. Yugioh Guardian. This is not a new card, but it's the first time we get to get it. Level 6 Warrior Synchro Earth Tuner. 1 or more non-tuners, 2,800, 2,000. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can special summon that monster to your side of the field and face-up defense. So, even with support, there's a lot of trudge skills we have, and even with that, there's no reason to play this card. Except if you're just playing for fun, you want a role-playing Yugioh Guardian deck, this is for you, but there's no reason to play it. Its stats are good, 2,800, but then that whole requirement Destroying monsters by battle and sending them to the graveyard is what limits it. And of course, you need an Earth Tuner, so that's kind of more setup for setting. You need setup for a mediocre Synchro monster whose ability is bit conditional. Um, yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Swift Gaia is kind of like an alternative level 6. Similar, I think it has 200 less attack, but typically you want bigger plays with your level 6 right now. There's a lot of better options than level 6. This is just if you're playing Goyo Guardians. Respect My Authority will bump it up to 3,300. Maybe that would be something, but I don't think it's enough. Here's a card that everyone's talking about. Elemental Hero Stratos, level 4, Wind Warrior, 1800, 300. When this is normal or special summoned, you can activate one of these effects. You can either destroy spells or traps on the field up to the number of hero monsters you control, except for this one, or you could add one hero monster from your deck to your hand. So, elemental heroes, obviously were never really a thing until Neos Fusion came out. Neos Fusion isn't really an elemental hero deck; it just uses elemental hero Neos with another effect monster. I think that's what it is. This card could make heroes a thing. The first ability, you could destroy up to 2 spells or traps on the field. That's a really good control ability on a 4-star 1800 monster. Or then the other ability, you can add one hero monster from your deck to your hand. And that is a lot of monsters. That tutor ability could be anything. And what it is you could special summon, you could pick any hero monster you want. So you could build your deck a number of different ways. And you could just, because elemental heroes, their boss monsters are their fusion monsters, you could pick the monster you want to fuse with this card. So, let's see the other one. There's some that, like tutor fusion spells, for example, things like that. This actually works really well with the card Hero's Bond. Hero's Bond is a card we get one copy of from pretty much I think it's the first structure deck that they sold. If there's a face-up hero monster on the field, special summon 2 level 4 or lower elemental hero monsters from your hand. So, what it is you could pick Stratos, get special summoned onto the board, and then you could just blow up their board with those 2 spells or traps, or you could, if they don't have 2 spells or traps, you can add a hero monster from your deck to your hand. This is just like a card you want 3 of if you want to make elemental heroes a thing. Really, that's all it is. Not even just elemental heroes; it counts all heroes. So, your masked heroes, your vision heroes, they all get counted here. So, a very exclusive card for the whole archetype of hero, masked hero. But this on a wind itself allows, a card like Great Tornado, who cuts everyone's attack and defense by half, which is pretty solid. There's a lot of clever deck building you can make with elemental heroes, and it seems like you need Stratos to make it work. Next card is called Masked Chameleon. Level 4 Reptile Tuner. Earth 1600, 1100. Cannot be normal summoned if you control a level 5 or higher monster. When this is normal summoned, you can target a monster of 0 defense in your graveyard, special summon that target in face-up defense. Its effects are negated. You cannot special summon any other monsters except from the extra deck during the turn you activate this effect. So synchro plays here. It's a reptile, and it's not synergistic with anything, so that's not good. What's good is this opens up archetypes, synchro plays for archetypes with 0 defense. There are certain archetypes where every monster has 0 defense. We just saw that with Shiranui, but they do it too good themselves with their own tuners. Things like Vendreads, Steel Swarms, Batterymen, they all have 0 defense. So a card like this would just only help allow synchro plays. You would just put in a few of these, and then you could use your extra deck to make those decks a little more competitive nowadays. And this Chameleon is a 4-star tuner, and that's big for a tuner. So it allows you to get into bigger synchro plays with the number of stars you have. Here's the chase card here. Fiendish Chain, Continuous Trap. Activate this card by targeting one effect monster on the field. negate the effects of that face-up monster while it's on the field. Also, that face-up monster cannot attack. When it's destroyed, destroy this card. Here it is. The card that this is replacing right now seems to be Floodgates or Paleozoic Canadias. It's a direct upgrade over Forbidden Chalice and Floodgate Trap Hole. It has the benefits of both. It negates the effect, like Forbidden Chalice, without giving them more attack, which is what Chalice does bad. And then it also does something like Floodgate. It keeps the monster on the board. They can't attack. Kind of useless. I mean, obviously, you could tribute summon with them. You could synchro summon with them. You could do stuff with the wasted monster, but some decks can't afford to do that. And stopping an effect is key right now. You run a lot of forbidden cards. You're golden in a tournament setting. And Fiendish Chain does that, but even better. What this also does is it leaves the card on the board, and if you ever play Powerful Rebirth, that's a card that gets left on the board all the time. So you can do something extra with that, but that's a very marginal benefit. But Fiendish Chain is the chase card. If you're playing someone with 3 in it, they spent a lot of money on Duel Links. Whenever this comes out, it's going to be a card that's going to see a ton of play until it gets nerfed and put in the semi-limit list. I don't know if that will ever happen, but this is going to phase out cards like Paleozoic Canadian, Floodgate, but it's possible they all get run together into very annoying decks. Move on to the SRs. There's more SRs that are new here. Naturia Barkion. Level 6 Dragon Synchro Earth Tuner and Earth Non-Tuners 2518. During either player's turn, when a trap card is activated, you can banish 2 cards from your graveyard and negate that activation. If you do, destroy it. This card must be face up on the field to activate and resolve this effect. So, this on its own being synchro summoned will have enough fuel to negate that one trap card. Let's say they play Fiendish Chain. You could negate that Fiendish Chain just with these 2 materials that made this Naturia Barkion. This card's like Shi-En. Shi-En negates mostly traps, sometimes spells. And this guy you just need the graveyard fuel to do it. Shi-En does it once per turn. Speaking of 6 Sams, this is very easily made with Kagemusha and Kizzen. Kagemusha normal summon, Kizzen special summon. You got your Earth monsters for level 6. Pretty good. I think this is a choice. This is a sneaky card you could slip into your 6 Sams decks. Of course, it'll require a little bit different build. You have to run Kagemusha. Kagemusha and Kizzen don't really mix. Kagemusha works with level 3s, but you can make it work. Vision Hero Adoration. Level 8 Warrior Fusion. 2 hero monsters is all you need to fuse it. 2800, 2100. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and one other hero monster you control. The opponent's targeted monster loses attack and defense equal to the attack of the targeted monster until the end of this turn. So, this is a vision hero, so it's not like Master where you could just flip down the face down, a quick play, and then they're getting 3 of them out on the board. You have to use regular fusion, like Fusion Gate or any of the fusion polymerization, things like that. The effect's definitely good, but it's a situational capacity with swarmy monsters like Drill Dark. Drill Dark, you play 1, you get 2 on the board. So you benefit from having another monster on the board, and that's something that Drill Dark does. This is a good card for hero decks in general. You could just be playing elemental heroes, and you could have this card because 2 hero monsters is literally anything. This is a very compatible and solid fusion play for your extra deck. Next card I think is a sleeper. Aaron Lightsworn Monk. Level 4 Light Warrior 1600 1000. If this card attacks a defense position monster before damage calculation, shuffle that monster into the deck. Once per turn during your end phase, send the top 3 cards of your deck to your graveyard. So, if you don't mind milling those 3 cards, this is pretty good. I think sending a card back to the deck is better than sending it to the graveyard or the banish zone, frankly. There's too many decks that manipulate those zones, they use Graveyard and Banish as I don't care that you did it. It benefits me to just shuttle these cards back and forth, and then I can win the next turn. Aaron will just make them waste resources. They hard remove the monster. They don't get it back. They're going to use resources to get it back. Then you win on the board, I think. This card's not really a Lightsworn. Like, it's not going to make Lightsworns come back, if they ever were back. But this is just a general warrior. You know, you're playing Red Eye Slash. You need a warrior. This is a pretty good warrior. If you're playing a light and dark deck, like a Thunder Dragon, you need a light. This is a pretty good light monster. This is just a generally good card. Being a warrior helps. There's some, like I mentioned before, playing like I think Dark Cavalry needs a warrior, and Dark Magician. So there's a lot of possibility for play. I really like this card. Here is Nefarious Archfiend, Eater of Nefariousness. This is one of those I don't know what those girls are called. I forgot what they're called. Shit. Forget it. Anyways, level 4 Beast, 1500, 200. You can only control one of these at a time. If you control a spellcaster monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Once per turn during your opponent's end phase, if this card is in your graveyard, you can target one face-up monster you control, destroy it. If you do, special summon this card. This is a very niche ability where you benefit from destroying your own monsters. So, two very annoying cards that do benefit from that is Yubel and Nephis. Nephis, you get destroyed by effect, you come back, you blow up the board. Yubel turns into the next form, which is progressively more annoying. But there is the thing where they need the Charmers. This is one of the animals this is the animal of the Earth Charmer. They have that special summon ability when there's a spellcaster around, so it's a bit anti-synergy and fitting that theme of being the pet of the Charmer, in that it doesn't make sense anymore. Like, the spellcasters in Duel Links, they will willingly get destroyed. Like, what's the point, right? You have to be running Yubel or Nephis. I guess some Nephis monsters could be spellcasters, but I'm not exactly sure. Like, Fire King Avatar Yaksha is a Beast Warrior, so that won't work here. Not really a good card, just because of that special summon. I mean, the spellcaster thing. You definitely benefit without it fitting the storyline, but that's what it's for, I guess. Cursed Fig. Level 1, Water Plant, 200, 200. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, target 2 set spells or traps on the field. While this is in the graveyard, those set cards cannot be activated. This is Shinzeng Hu built on a monster. This would be decent if it didn't have that condition where it needs to be destroyed by battle. I mean, you try to ram this into your opponent, you lose a lot of life, but activate one of their back row. You have to hit 2 though. It's kind of like Green Kappa. You have to hit 2 monsters. So this is like you have to hit 2 spells or traps. Bit conditional. This could have been really strong, but there's too many conditions holding it back. Nari Fire. This is another Charmer monster. This is a Charmer of the Fire Girl. Level 4 Pyro, 1500, 200. You can only control one of these. If you control a spellcaster, special summon this from the hand. Once per turn, during your next standby phase, after this face-up card was destroyed by card effects and sent to the graveyard, special summon from your graveyard. This one's worse than the Nefarious Marmot. Its ability is to come back on effect destruction, and that's protecting a monster with 1500 and no abilities that affect the board at all, so you're just getting some 1500 Pyro back, and I don't really understand the point. I know Pyros do like destroying themselves. That's something that they did, so maybe there's some synergy there. But then again, you need the spellcaster here to fit with the Fire Charmer, so that kind of works against it again. Here's an Elemental Lord. Phosphorage, the Elemental Lord. Light, level 8, Fairy, 2800, 2200. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must be special summoned by having exactly 5 light monsters in your graveyard. When this is special summoned, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls. You can use this effect once per turn. If this face-up card leaves the field, skip the battle phase of your next turn. All the elemental lords have not seen play because they need that tricky condition of 5 in the graveyard. We had Grand Soil recently, 5 Earth monsters. That's probably the best one because Magnet Warriors are so easily controlled. This could work in some light and dark thing. I know Chaos likes to manipulate how many are in the graveyard. Maybe you can make this work. This is a very strong ability. My thought is it doesn't work too well. It probably works against it. Speaking of Lightsworns like to dump a lot of stuff in the graveyard. You might have a shot there, but let's say you dump 3 and they're all monsters, you get 6. Yeah, it's kind of very situational thing to get this on the board. Last new card from the selection box 3 is a Trap Black Illusion. Until the end of this turn, all dark spellcasters with 2,000 or more attack you currently control cannot be destroyed by battle. Their effects are negated. Also, they are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. This is a closer for Dark Magician decks. It's a weapon. They typically run Dark Magic attack. They tutor it with the Illusion Magic, I think, or maybe the Rod, and then they blow up the board. It's a bit slow but strong. This allows you to do it in a trap form. It's faster, but you don't blow up the board. They just ignore everyone. They're immune, so Magician's Navigation should help negate back row, like they're trying to counter this card so they flip you in defense mode or something. You could kind of use Magician's Navigation to help you there. So this is definitely a weapon for Dark Magician decks. Expect the best Dark Magician decks to run this card. And they'll be even better than they are right now. I think they're pretty good right now. So that is it for selection box 3. Like I mentioned before, I would get this box if you want to whale on it for that opportunity cost, so you could get your Fiendish Chains, Stratus for your Elemental Hero decks, maybe Mask Chameleon. I like Naturia Barkion for certain decks. I like Aaron a lot. Black Illusion for your Dark Magician, Vision Hero Adoration. Pretty solid bunch of cards. Some of these SRs are, straight up trash, but that's to be expected. And of course, you buy a selection box to buy some old cards. Let's say this one, you're building Dark Magicians, you've got Magician's Navigation here. That's pretty cool. Gold Sarcophagus, that's pretty cool. It's from a structured deck, so it's pretty cool to get that. Yeah. Generally good cards. They sell Concentrating Current, which is a bit of a... I don't know about that. It's semi-limited. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the next new cards. This one has only 4. That's a structured deck EX called Dragunity Overdrive. Dragunity decks were a bit of a one-trick pony. They used Vajrana, made it 3,800, and one turn killed you. You've got some new tools here. They could be sleepy good. One turn killed decks tend to go that way. First card is a level 8 Dragunity Arma Leviathan. Level 8 Wind Dragon, 26 1200. You can special summon this from your hand or graveyard by removing from play one face-up monster you control equipped with a Dragunity card. When this card is normal or special summoned, you can select a dragon monster in your graveyard except for this one, equip it to this card. When this card is sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, select one of the monsters that were equipped to this card that was sent to the graveyard and special summon it. If you see these new cards, they work in a combo. The cost is situational, but it's the same as it's being special summoned from the graveyard. So it's a bit flexible in the cost. And this seems to be the only way you get your level 10 out. Level 10 is the boss monster of this deck. It allows you to play other cards than Vajrana. So 8 plus 2, all these tuners are level 2. This is a very necessary component to build the new Dragunity. So let's see how they work. This card also helps. Dragunity Senatus, level 4 Winged Beast, 1800, 600. You can discard one Dragunity card, equip one Dragunity tuner from your deck to this card. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn, except for dragons. You can use this effect once per turn. If a Dragunity monster you control will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy one Dragunity equipped to this card instead. This is how it works. You normal summon this card, you discard a Dragunity, you discard the one I just mentioned, level 8 Arma Leviathan. Then you get to equip a Dragunity tuner from your deck to this card. There's a few tuners you can pick, but I would choose Alcute. Atlas. So Atlas gets equipped to Senatus, and then you resummon Arma Leviathan, which was just disposed of, because it requires a monster with an equip on it. That is this Senatus that just got an equip on it from the discard. You bring Leviathan onto the board, and then Atlas its ability is when sent to the graveyard when equipped, you can select one card on the field and destroy it. I picked the wrong card. Shoot. It's Phalanx. Once per turn, while this card is equipped to a monster as an equipped by card effect, you can special summon this card. Yeah, so Phalanx would work better than Atlas. Then you get those two on the board, and in any turns you're level 10. So, yeah. I just explained it, but I picked the wrong monster to serve as the tuner for my example. Alright. Here's a card that's less useful. Dragunity Legionnaire, level 3, Winged Beast, 1200, 800. When this is a normal summon, you can select one level 3 or lower Dragunity monster dragon in your graveyard, equip it to this card as an equipment. You can send a Dragunity card from your spell or trap zone to select one face-up monster your opponent controls and destroy it. This serves a very similar role to another card we've seen in a structured deck. That's Gen X Ally Crusher from the Barrel Dragon deck. And it's a bit awkward, but it's a slow control card where you could just pick off a card once per turn. The problem with this card is that it's a level 3. All these Dragunity guys are even numbers, and then their tuners are even numbers, so it's awkward to have a 3 with 2s. So that's what makes it not work too well. Last one's that level 10 boss monster. Dragunity Knight Ascalon. Level 10 Dragon Synchro 1 Dragunity Tuner. Non-tuners 30, 300, 3200. You can banish one Dragunity monster from your graveyard. Target one monster your opponent controls. Banish it. If this synchro summoned card in its opponent's control is destroyed by an opponent card, battle, or card effect, you can special summon one Dragunity synchro monster with 3000 or less attack from your extra deck. This is treated as a synchro summon. You can use this effect once per turn. Oh. This is pretty good. You get your 10 stars worth onto the board. It's a lot of attack. You get a free banish. That's pretty good. Free banish. It's better than Vermilion Dragon Mech. That's just free destroy. This is free banish. And the recoup ability is really good. When this card gets destroyed, you can synchro summon any of your monsters. So Vadrana, you could get Arca, you could get Gaybulge, any of them. And I assume it'll work kind of like a toolbox. You could pick whichever one you want based on your situation to take advantage of the situation. So, very flexible card. This could put Dragunities on the board. As mentioned, they are a high potential deck now. I think these tools are pretty good, but you're going to have to buy 3 of this, structured deck EX to make it work. And then it's a crapshoot too, but I think they're pretty strong. And it could be a frustrating deck to play against because their combos are pretty good. Last 2 new cards from this week are from the Tag Duel Tournament. I'm not sure what iteration it is for the Tag Duel Tournament, but we have 2 very interesting cards from it this time. Right off the bat, I can't say if these cards will see play, but they're definitely not cards that probably will get 0 play. They are not horrendous cards. That's a vote of confidence, right? They're not horrendous. The UR is called the Unchosen One, normal spell. If your opponent controls 2 or more monsters, your opponent chooses one monster they control. You destroy one other monster they control. Then special summon the destroyed monster from the graveyard in attack position. You cannot conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. So, basically your opponent has to have 2 monsters, or 3. They pick one and then you destroy. They pick one to save, I guess. They pick one to save. You effect destroy another one. Then you get to special summon that destroyed one to your side of the field. And to play this, you have to be, the situation is that you're behind, or if they spam a bunch of stuff on turn one, which is a very common thing with certain decks, like Blackwings do that sometimes. And there's probably not a lot of situations where they have equally good monsters to pick. Usually there's one really good one and one not so good one. And they'll probably give you the worst one. That's the smart thing to do, right? So this card's not horrible, but you're kind of banking on your opponent to make the wrong choice. And of course, you can't attack that turn, which is a bit of a deal breaker. The goal probably is to use the monster in a synchro play, or maybe even set them up for treacherous trap hole. But there's no point really effect destroying them. I guess if they have 3 monsters, you steal one and then you treacherous trap hole the other 2. I don't know. It's a bit of a weird card, but I don't know. Maybe in the right deck, makes a little sense. The other new card is High and Low. It's a SR Trap. SR Rarity, Normal Trap. When your face-up monster is targeted for an attack, apply the effect up to 3 times while you control that face-up attack target. Send the top card of your deck to the graveyard if it's a monster. The attack target gains attack equal to the attack of the monster you sent to the graveyard, but if the attack of the attack target is higher than the attacking monster's attack, destroy the attack target. So what it is basically your monster gets 3 charges of this ability on High and Low, up to 3 abilities, and you mill a card from your deck, and if it's a monster, they gain the attack. I think it's just for that battle phase, but it'll be kind of OP if it's just, keeps gaining attack and you just fill it with 3,000 attackers. But what it is they gain attack, and the part of the sentence that says, but if the attack target's attack is higher than the attacking monster's attack, destroy that attack target. That goes without saying because that's a battle destruction, right? But what this phrasing probably means is that they get effect destroyed. Like, your attack is higher than theirs, but they get effect destroyed instead of battle destroyed because they don't need to write that text on a card, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's obvious, right? So that makes me think it's an effect destruction. I won't know exactly until we get this card and actually use it. I don't know. But the fit in this card is obvious. It's a deck where you have a lot of monsters and you want to willingly ditch a card. And that really brings up Crystons. Crystons play Transcendent Crystals on purpose so they could start off with a card in the graveyard, right? So that's the whole point of it. Their decks have a lot of monsters. They want 30-card decks with, two-thirds monsters, I think. So there could be a fit in Crystons. The downside, of course, with this card is, they know which card has the high and low, so they're not going to attack it again if they messed up once already, right? They're going to find another way to banish, to effect destroy, to bounce the card that has high and low on it. So, of course, you might just get one charge of it, but if the, ditching the card has that benefit, why not? So I think this could have a fit in Crystons. I also have like a pet Nordic deck that only runs 1 Treacherous and all monsters, so maybe there's a fit in a deck like that. I don't know. Doug Dimmaduel has his deck of the week, and because of the magic of recording ahead of time, I don't know what deck it is. Check him out. I'm sure it's pretty awesome, pretty cool. Something you've probably never seen before. Here's Doug Dimmaduel with his casual deck of the week.
Hey there, this is Doug Dimmaduel with Doug's Casual Deck of the Week. This week I'm kind of working on a just a generic farming deck. This is one that, using an archetype that we haven't seen too much of lately, works pretty well for farming events. Even if you're not trying to hit the, 6,000 duel assessment score to 8,000 plus, typically you'll get anywhere from 5,000 or maybe just a little under 5,000 duel assessment points for using this type of deck. But there's ways you can enhance it to make sure that you could score a little bit higher on your duel assessments. But really what I'm doing is I'm dipping into the Morphtronics archetype and really just taking advantage of getting into a quick as possible Ancient Sacred Wyvern synchro play. Now, if you don't remember Ancient Sacred Wyvern, it's a level 7 fairy synchro, 2100 attack, 2000 defense. It requires one light tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters. So the reason why this is usable in a Morphtronics deck is because your tuner, your Morphtronics Scopin, is a light tuner, so it works out very nicely. So while your life points is higher than your opponent's, this card gains attack equal to the difference. So while your while your life points are lower than your opponent's, this card loses attack equal to the difference. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can pay 1,000 life points and special summon this card. So it has some floatability, but that's not really why I use this. I really use this towards just as soon as possible, maybe in turn 1 or turn 3, hopefully trying to get my Morphtronics Scopin onto the field and get a generic level 4 Morphtronics monster to go into my level 7 synchro play using the skill Life Point Boost Alpha. Now, what Life Point Boost Alpha does is it boosts your beginning life points from 4,000 to 5,000. So already, if you get this Ancient Sacred Wyvern onto the field turn 1, we're talking about a 3,100 attack monster. Plus, any damage you do on top of that is going to increase the discrepancy between your life points and your opponent's life points, thus continuously raising the attack of this monster. So usually by the end of the duel, you could at least have it at least 5,000 or higher attack points, swinging for game. So that does give you a nice little boost in your duel assessment score. So obviously the staple is Morphtronics Scopin. It's just a level 3 tuner, 800 attack, but while in attack position, once per turn you can special summon one level 4 Morphtronic monster from your hand, destroy it during the end phase. But also while in defense position, this card is a level 4 monster. So if you run into an issue where you have your Morphtronic cell phone there, the level 1 machine, and you're able to get your Morphtronic Scopin onto the field without having any level 4s in your hand, then at least you can turn into defense position and go into a level 5 synchro play for just a generic level 5 like Armades Keeper of Boundaries, just something along those lines. But anyway, aside from those 3 Morphtronic Scopins, I'll run the 2 copies of Morphtronic Cell Phone. I don't really think you need more than 1 or 2, but while this card's in attack position, once per turn you can roll a 6-sided die, reveal cards on the top of your deck equal to the roll, and special summon one level 4 or lower Morphtronic monster from among them, ignoring summoning conditions, and then shuffle the rest back into the deck. I really only use this attack effect. There's also a defense effect, which to me is not quite relevant for this deck, but as far as the level 4 Morphtronic monsters go, I use Morphtronic Radion, which, while in attack position, it gains 800 attack, or all Morphtronic monsters, to be more specific, gain 800 attack, while we also have Morphtronic Slingen, which is one of your, at least late game, card popping monsters. While this is in attack position, once per turn you contribute 1 Morphtronic monster except Morphtronic Slingen to destroy 1 card on the field. So that's back row or monsters. So run 3 of each of those, that way you have your level 4s covered. Just to round things out, I'll run Morphtronic Cameron. As well in attack position, when this card is destroyed by battle, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower Morphtronic monster from your hand or graveyard. So, except this card. So, it's just a way to, if you didn't get the ideal first hand, you could always try and use this as a floating tool, especially when you're going up against NPC or just your regular roaming duelists. It's sometimes they're afraid to swing into Morphtronic Cameron, so I'm trying to play off of the impact that a card like this has while sitting on the field. Finally, I like to run my 1 copy of Morphtronic Smartphone, and it cannot be normal summoned or set, and is only special summoned by banishing one Morphtronic monster from your graveyard. But also, while in attack position once per turn, you can roll a 6-sided die, excavate that many cards from the top of your deck, and add one Morphtronic card to your hand, and then shuffle the rest back into the deck. So as far as monsters go, that's essentially the layout for this deck. But then I run 6 spell cards. 3 of them are Junk Box, where you select and special summon one level 4 or lower Morphtronic monster from your graveyard and destroy it during the end phase. And then my 3 copy of Morphtronic Accelerator. This is the MVP, because this allows you to kind of put something back into your deck that you didn't really need, while also popping cards on the field. So what you do is you return one Morphtronic monster from your hand to the deck and destroy one card on the field and draw one card. So this is probably one of my just kind of generally one of my favorite spells in the game. I wish it was more generic, but this is strict to just Morphtronics. So still love using this. As far as extra deck goes, I'll just run my 2 copies of Ancient Sacred Wyvern. You really only want 1 or 2 on the field, but also I have a level 7 Black Rose Dragon to blow up the field in case I'm in a bit of a pinch and I don't get an ideal first turn play. I also have Bryonic, the Dragon of the Ice Barrier, as just a generic level 6 synchro, and then Armades, Keeper of Boundaries, as a generic level 5 synchro in case some things don't work out as planned. But overall, that's just kind of just a quick way to just get a high attack monster to swing for game, and maybe get a duel assessment around 5,000 points. It's just something that doesn't take a whole lot of time. If your time is precious and you don't want to spend a lot of time trying to farm, this is just a very quick way to get a high attack monster to swing for game pretty rapidly. So I don't know. I mean, because sometimes when we think about farming, you just think of a grind. This is a fairly consistent deck that can have a pretty decent duel assessment score if you're trying to farm legendary duelists. But anyway, that's it for my casual deck of the week. I will see you next time. Take care.
All right, thanks, Doug. And you can check out Doug on this podcast every week with a cool new casual deck of the week and his own Twitter page, Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Talk. Not much upcoming news left unless they sneak it in. Dual Quest and DSOD Joey. That is it. Some exciting things are going on in the podcast world. We've got a lot of new followers recently. I should shout them out some other day, but because of the surgery and all, I really have to rush this. There's someone who challenged me to a duel on YouTube. I've friended this person already, so I think the stipulation was the loser would appear on the other person's podcast, so it's pretty cool to know of other podcasts besides Pro Bench Warmers Dueling's podcast. So if he does have one, I'd willingly go on it. But we may duel in the near future, and also got some business opportunities on Gmail I'm going to look into with Podcorn, so I'm going to check that out. But if you like this podcast, I'll have to shout out to Aaron Patton of the New Age Influencers podcast. I checked out his podcast. It is it's like life hacks. It's like a lot of life advice, life coach stuff. And he left a review on iTunes saying this is a pretty cool podcast. So check out the New Age Influencers podcast. That is it for this week. If you like this podcast, please leave me a review or subscribe or listen. I don't really care. This podcast is available everywhere. Just search the Duel Assessment. Check out the notes at the duelassessment.wordpress.com, or you could email duelassessment@gmail.com, or you find me on Twitter, duel_assessment, me at Green Rangers CCG. Alright, so that is it for this week. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. I'll see you next time.